So first, thanks to JetBrains for letting me do this. I used to be an employee of theirs, which was a wonderful time in my life. And thanks to everyone who supported me at Egghead and made my dreams come true there. So I am eternally grateful to all of you. All right, with that out of the way, WebStorm and Angular 2 and WebStorm tricks in general. We'll start with some imports. So you'll notice that in imports, and you'll see my keyboard shortcut show up at the bottom here. At least it's going to show them for Mac. And this is a plugin called Presentation Assistant if you want to do this sort of stuff on your own. So I'm going to do autocomplete here inside of the import. And you can see that as I do this, it lets me choose the various things that I may want to look up. So as you're importing things, so that works with the path. But it also works inside of things that are exported from that sort of file. So if I wanted to import HTTP, you could see that because in this file it exports, I guess you'd have to drill down into this a bit more, but because this exports HTTP here, that in our service component here, we're able to import it directly from sort of that destructuring import syntax. Also, what we can do is if I delete this line completely, you'll see that this goes red and that this is no longer a resolved import. So if you hit Alt-Enter, and Alt-Enter is the magical keyboard shortcut which fixes all of your problems, at least that's what it should do. It'll show you what you can do. That it suggests to import this statement, rename, suppress. Suppress is just so it doesn't show that error anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and import it. And it's going to give me a list of possible solutions for that. And this is something that'll be cleaned up as Angular 2 is also cleaned up where the definition files are. Right now it looks like there's 2 definition files. So I'll go ahead and hit enter, and it'll import that, and it added this entire line. So you see before and after, it added that entire line for me. So you can manage a lot of your imports that way, whether it's, if I jump to we'll go to a component, card component. If I didn't have this, you'll see that this will go red. I'll hit Alt-Enter, add import statement, component, and then it added it over here. Now you can see one thing in this file. I have event emitter and output, which I'm not using. An output looks like this, where you'd have like a save and new event emitter, but I'm not using that anymore. So you see that now they're being used, that these aren't gray anymore, but when they're unused, they turn gray, meaning that if you highlight or hover over it, it says unused specifier. So I'm going to go ahead and do Control-Alt-O, and this is something called optimize imports, meaning that it's going to look through your file, make sure that every import you're using is actually referenced in your file, and if it's not referenced, it's going to remove it. So it'll clean that up for you. I also believe that if you do it this way, so if I had, I didn't actually test this one before, but if you import across a couple of lines, I believe this will work where it'll clean it up for you. So you'll see that it took these 2 import statements that are importing from different, or from the same file, but as you were importing for some reason, you just typed it out and it spread across 2 lines. So if you optimize your imports here, it'll add them all to that same line. So that's called optimizing imports. Extremely useful feature, especially when you're not sure which paths these are in. Sometimes you'll forget which ones are Angular Core, Common, and all of those. So it's super helpful that WebStorm can just let you know as you're typing those out. And you can also navigate to anything that's in here. Most of these will navigate to their definition files because that's what it's looking up. You'll see this is a metadata definition file for TypeScript. So it's just gonna look that up for you. And then another big trick here, or at least a tip, is that I use the Angular CLI, which was announced officially at ngconf last week, and that creates a lot of different folders. So this dist and temp folder And these are going to have a lot of other files in there that WebStorm will start indexing and looking through unless you exclude them. So if you right-click on it, or you could do a shortcut for this, and you go down to Mark Directory As, I'm going to cancel exclusion. You'll see it'll start indexing that. But this is a temp file, and there's a ton of files in there. So I'm going to go back to Mark Directory As Excluded, and that way WebStorm's not going to index that. Or if you have, other directories that you don't need WebStorm, or that are scratch folders or something, and you don't want WebStorm to index them, to reference them, because if you don't exclude that when you try and import things, it's going to look through there as well, and you might get a bunch of extraneous potential matches. So I'm going to continue on to, I'm going to jump over to a component. You can actually, with TypeScript, because they have classes, it's actually really easy to navigate between classes. This is something that carries over from IntelliJ. If you want to navigate to a class, it's Control-N. And I'm just going to type in component, and you can see it matches component in all these. So I'll just jump over to here, and then in my template URL, I'm going to just hit Control-B, and that's going to navigate to that template. And I can just jump back to where I was and forward, back, forward to kind of navigate between that template. Another thing I didn't show here is that you can also do a related files or related symbol if you hit Control-Alt-Home, or you can assign any shortcut to that. This is actually going to open a pop-up to show any of the files that are referenced in here. So right now it's input, change detection strategy, and component. And also in the future, WebStorm will be adding the specific Angular 2 files that would be referenced in here as well, such as the template URL and the styles URLs. So if we go in here in these templates, I'll just go ahead and select all of this and delete it. And obviously there's Emmet, so if you just go ahead and type div and hit tab, it'll expand that out. But what you might not know is that you can also do that inside of, if you just have an inline template, I can do that inline here as well. And this will actually give me all of the autocomplete features if I have a span or a button. And then if I want to add a button click, I can do on click. And as well, you can also do, if I had my on click implemented down here, and I went to complete in here, this actually knows where it is. It knows that this component knows, or this template knows that it belongs to that class. So if I hit complete and I start typing on, you can see that on click shows up as an option. And then when I navigate to it, it actually jumps to that. And I believe if I do a show usages, it'll jump back to it to see everywhere that this is being invoked or called from. There's a shortcut called show usages. I hit search everywhere as double shift, and I type show usages, or you can do Control-Alt-F7, or you can remap that to something else. Let me just show you real quick. So launching the settings is Control-Alt-S. I'll just go there manually here. And if you go to the key map and you type in anything like show usages, you can just go in here and say add keyboard shortcut, type in any other keyboard shortcut, and then just accept that as the new one. So as you find yourself using these more and more, I just have the default key map, so I'm not confusing anyone. But as you find yourself using these more and more, you'll want to start remapping these to what you want to use. So yeah, you can navigate between those two. You can also rename and refactor these. So if I don't want this to be click, it can be handle clicked. And you can see that that's actually renaming it here. I actually did a capital L in there. And this should, if I switch this back to template URL, and then I'll just do what is my card component HTML, then navigate to it. This should also have my click in here, and then this will know on click. There it is, on click, and you should be able to navigate back to it. There's a lot of them implemented here, but let's see if it has the one I want. I didn't see it in there. But these will know their context and be able to jump back and forth between them as Angular 2 support is improved over time. So other things we can do in here is if you have, let's see, this SW card component is used. Let's see where it's used. So card component, let's do show usages. This is used inside the detail component. Those are the tests for that. I'll jump back. Whoops. Show usages. Go down there. Card component. I'll just go to detail component this way. Detail component. So I have I'm using my card component inside of here, inside of this template. And you can see that inside of my card component, I have an input defined. So in my detail component, that input was called person. So in my detail component, if I invoke autocomplete on this, you can see that person actually shows up. So I can assign that to something from, so this person is going to be on my detail component, and it's something that can get passed into that card component because it knows that on my card component, this person is an input. Similarly, if I define an output, a custom output, I'll call it save, new event emitter, and I'll just go ahead and use my import tricks for these. There's a lot of things called event emitter in various frameworks. Event emitter and output. And then when I switch over to my detail component, which uses this card component, you can see that if I autocomplete, save is an option. If I go ahead and remove that save, and I come back here, and I try autocompleting again, I'll see that save, there's no suggestions for it. So it's able to know based on these inputs and outputs that that it has all these features and these things referenced that you want on save, and then switch back to our detail component, and you just implement an on save here. All right. Anything else I have for templates? Something I really love about this is if I want to rename this, I don't even have to do multiple cursors. I can just start deleting, and it'll start renaming these elements to whatever I want them to be named. So if I wanted this to be a paragraph or a span or a div or whatever. There's also I definitely look into the various recommend looking into various forms of emit, where if you just have a class name, a container, you can expand like that. Or if you want to do 3 containers, you can expand like that. So definitely check out emit. That's available in most editors now. And let's see. So surround with, if I want to surround this with a template or a live template, I can say surround this with a container. So that's, I'm hitting Control-Alt-T to do that. So I can surround with a tag and just start typing anything. And then anytime I can just format. So reformatting is Control-Alt-L. And something you can do as well if you're writing inline templates. So I'll go into my card component. We'll just copy all of this. Go back into my card component. Go into my template URL. Change this into an inline template. So just paste that in there. And what you can do at any time is you can hit Alt-Enter and say Edit Angular 2 Fragment. And that means it'll pull up this little dialog where you can come in and edit it by itself and move things around and format in the context of HTML versus formatting in the context of JavaScript, or TypeScript in this case. So you're able to move these things around, and then it'll reflect those changes inside that template string. And you can also do, inside of just a little string trick that I like to show, so if I have a div and I accidentally used single quotes instead of trying to go back and going to the template string quotes, you can just hit Alt-Enter here and say replace with template string and continue to type out. So you can also, so now it's a Angular 2 fragment. You could come in here, div, unordered list with 10 list elements in it, that sort of stuff, and obviously format it. So that's all of that. Let's return to there. Do I have anything else for templates? Yeah, you can do, let's do card component. Just going to close the others and jump into the show this file in project view. And look at the CSS. So if I define something like a container style and have, let's say, a border, I like big borders that are dashed in red or something. You can autocomplete and pick colors. There's even a color picker in here if you just want to drag around and pick the various sort of themes or whatever you're using. So we'll just use that one. So once you've used that, anywhere inside of your HTML, if I have a class, you can autocomplete those sorts of containers. And you can see that this one gives me that path to that container. And you can actually use something called quick documentation, Control Q. There's no documentation on that. But the one that's really useful for styles is Control-Shift-I, which lets you look at the various styles of these classes. And I can see that, oh, that container is the one I want, so I'll go in there. And then I can even jump into here and navigate to it. And I can also, if I come back here, I can, because these are referenced, I can rename this to foo, hit refactor, and you'll see in my CSS file that was renamed to foo as well. We'll just go ahead and rename this back to container. You can see it's renamed back to container in both places. And that trick I showed with the Control-Shift-I, where it shows you what's going on in there, you can basically do that anywhere in your project. If you do Control-Shift-I, you can see onPush has a value of 4. You can see what this file looks like. If I want to look at my card component CSS, that's back to that original file. If I want to look at input, that's the definition file. Anytime you can hit enter and it'll jump you to that file. So if you're looking at my detail component, I just wanted to peek over at my card component. Whoops. I wanted to peek at my card component with Control-Shift-I. You can see it's showing me that class, and I can go ahead and hit enter and jump straight to it. So instead of just navigating straight to it, which is usually Control-B, and losing the context of that previous file, you can kind of peek at it and then jump to it with enter. And just in case you're wondering, if you peek at something, just hit escape to dismiss it, or if you look up the documentation of something, escape dismisses that as well. I think that's all I have for some templates and some navigation tricks. I'll pause for questions now in case anyone has any. I like to speed through these things faster than anyone can follow, so they can watch it in slow motion later on.
Yeah, you've been mentioning live templates. Can you show a bit more how you can actually create your own templates and use them in your code?
Sure. I haven't done this in a while, but I'm pretty sure I remember how to do it. What I typically do is, so let's take the card component. We'll just go ahead and select all and see if this will work. I would just invoke the save as live template. So that's under tools, okay. So if you ever wonder where something is, I do this all the time. I'll say save as live template. It'll show you it's underneath tools. So if I want to find it later, and I'm just using the mouse, so I can do tools, and it's save as live template there. Or you can just always double shift and save as live template. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to create a template based on your selection. So I can say my user template for this is going to be comp, A description is just some Angular 2 template thingy. And then inside of here, don't have a lot of resolution space with my fonts so huge. Inside of here, you can start creating these variables. So if I wanted my selector to have a variable, I think it's $, I haven't done this in a while, $foo $, yeah. So then when you create this template, so that OK, let's see, and this is going to be in the context of TypeScript. So you can say, use this template only in TypeScript and in JavaScript and whatnot. Or you can say, use it everywhere. But basically, because it's a TypeScript-based template, you want to use it in TypeScript. And it knew that because you created it from a TypeScript file. So go ahead and delete, or just, sorry, I'll save that and I'll delete this. I'll type comp. I'll hit tab now. It'll generate that entire template for me. And it'll give me where my selector was, and I can go back to SW card. Not sure exactly what happened with, these must have had some unescaped template things inside of them. So let me look at save as live. Oh, I don't have a selection. So you can always find your live templates in here. Live template. And go in here. There's my comp template. So these imports must have had some, looks like it added an extra string around it. So just make sure and use these so that you test them out a couple times. And then with the variables, you can do some pretty cool things as far as with expressions like uppercasing and lowercasing, and it can even try and guess names for you with where's the completion ones? Complete, smart, complete. You can give it a default, so it's always, always bar, and then it'll select it. You can type something over it, and all that sort of stuff. So go ahead and play around with that. You can see a bunch of examples inside of other ones, define and iterators and the original Angular 1 and all that sort of stuff. So that's creating your own templates. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much. Let's continue.
Yep. All right. Let's see what else I got here. I just wrote down a bunch of random notes of features to show off. So code folding, as your imports kind of grow, you'll see it does something like this. And you can invoke that kind of at any point with control period to collapse or fold and expand your code. So if there's just like little bits you don't want to see, I think you can even do small things like this. If there's just tiny little parts you don't want to see, like I don't want to see my component definition, so go ahead and fold everything inside of there. I don't need to see the body of my component, so go ahead and fold that. Then unfold that, and we can select all of those and fold. And I think there's a unfold all. Let's see, unfold or expand all, I think it's called. So it'll expand everything that was folded. I'm not sure if there's a fold all or not. I don't think so. Maybe it's collapse all. Oops. Okay, there you go, collapse all. So if as your files get larger based on whether it's just configuration or whatnot, and it's not it's not something that you should refactor because your file's getting too big, you can just start folding things down if you need to. From there, there's multiple cursors as well. This is one of those things that doesn't really have a good default shortcut in WebStorm. So I found myself using Alt-click because I'm usually, if I'm using multiple cursors, I'm doing something like here and here or something, and you can just do whatever shortcuts. Because one big use case for multiple cursors under key map which is called a clone caret below and clone caret above. These guys don't have shortcuts to them, so if you want to just add another cursor above or below, you need to come in here and add the keyboard shortcut. I think in other editors it's Control or Alt up and Alt down or something, but those are already taken before multiple cursors became a thing. If you ever want to search for what a shortcut is, so like I just hit Alt up, what is that? So you can come in here and find shortcut, and you can see that Alt up is already bound to move up and in your plugins, different things. So you can just kind of play around in here. Control R is replace, Control A, Control Shift I, all those things will show you the various, or the things that they're bound to. And you can go ahead and customize this however you want. There's also a Vim plugin. I'm not going to get into that. I don't use Vim daily, at least not in WebStorm. But if you want to do all the various commands and motions and everything, there's a great Vim plugin for WebStorm as well. One thing I can show, let's see, code folding, multiple cursors, expanding selection. So something you find yourself doing a lot in HTML is just grabbing and expanding these selections. So if I just want to, yank all of that and put it down there, that sort of stuff, it's just Control W to keep on expanding until you get to the thing you want. Like if you find a cursor in here, we'll just grab that, expand, kind of to the next logical step. And there's smart rules coded in around there. It's not just expanding to curly braces or expanding to quotes. It's actually expanding fairly logically based on the language you're working in. And if you find yourself in a sort of an edge case and it's not expanding how you expect it to, then go ahead and hop on the JetBrains bug tracker, file a feature request or bug based on what you think it is, and they can work on that. So I also have, by default, I have camel case words turned on. So my expand selection is going to expand to just the camel case part of that word. I don't think that's a default actually. Camel. Let's see. Camel. Yeah, use camel hump words. I'm not sure if that's turned on by default or not. But if you want to play with these as far as using camel case words, inserting a closing bracket and closing things, or things like if you select this and hit quote, I don't know, select this and type a quote or something, it'll put quotes around that. You can turn that sort of stuff off in the settings as well. And from there, a couple more navigation tricks. As your files get bigger and you get on bigger projects, you're going to want to navigate around them. So a good one is just come into this menu and play with everything to learn what it all does. A couple of them are the file structure. So this one's great as far as navigating through your file. So if I wanted to hop down to my directives, and I wanted to hop over to my ng on init, I wanted to hop to my class definition, or I can even collapse my class definition. But just come in here and start typing stuff, and you can jump around to where everything is, and quickly navigate large files that way. If you have a large HTML template, this isn't going to be very impressive, but you can see I can navigate for my buttons and containers, so I can type my class name, and we'll jump to that as well. Wonder if my index is any bigger. That's not that big. So it'll show a bit more though. So it shows some of the things. So if I want to look up that script, I could say hop to the one that has Zone.js in it because I want to edit that or take it out. You can quickly navigate that way as well. Let's see. Just looking at my notes on my other monitor right now. File structure. Jumping back and forth is something that you're probably going to use a lot, navigating back. And this is probably a different shortcut in other editors as well. So if you want to change this one, it's probably a main one. Or switching between tabs is one you'll want to work with as well. And something that the WebStorm has that is a lifesaver that I use all the time is something called local history, because nobody commits as often as they should. So this actually keeps a history of your files for you and all the changes you've made over the time that you've used them. So I can kind of go back in time and see what this file was, see the various edits, and then basically take the changes. If I just click this button, it'll push that change over to the left, or sorry, over to the right, or take the change from the left. And you can basically edit these in line and pick and choose the changes you make, or revert back to a file as it was in the past. And this is without even git committing or anything. It just shows you a nice diff, and you can take these changes. This is exactly what the this project isn't up on GitHub. I could open one. Let's see if I have one that is. So I'll do open this project. So I could say git and compare with the latest repository version, and this will compare with this is the version that's up on GitHub. This is a project I forked from someone else, and I added some streams to it. So you can compare with what it was before and the streams and stuff that I added, and do some diffs and take the old changes or just revert and all that sort of stuff in there. And anything else I got? I think that's all I have in my notes. In case, I'm happy to answer any sort of questions if anyone has any.
Yeah, can you show us again how you put quotes on the selection, on the selected fragment?
Yeah, all I did was type a single quote. So I selected it. So if you just select something, I just did extend selection with Control W there, and then I just added the quote that way.
Yeah, I think you probably also have to check this option in preferences under smart keys. Yeah.
Yeah, this smart keys is insert pair. I think it's like surround.
Yeah, surround selection on type in quotes or brace. Yeah, it was second from the end in the first section.
So there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, let's go on. Do you have something else to
add multiple carets and double control with arrow keys? I never saw that one. Double control.
Maybe it's something new.
Oh. I had never seen that before. So double control, multiple caret. Okay. So if you can't see that, so that turns it like into a visual mode. Interesting. That's actually all I have in my notes. So if there's no other questions,
yeah,
I could just start singing or something.
There are also some questions on debugging Angular applications. Do you have any experience with that? Can you show us something?
Yeah, I don't really have anything yet. I know based on the way that Angular is compiled with its source mapping files and things like that, the debugging story should be the same as if you do a run and a debug. You'll get a panel on the bottom, and it can jump to the if the code hits a breakpoint, or if it hits into an error based on the source maps, you should be able to navigate back to the individual lines inside of your project. But I haven't had a lot of experience with that yet. Both the debugging and the testing stories of Angular 2, I'm kind of waiting for it to finish, because I prefer that, if a test fails, I prefer it to be my fault and not a bug in the testing framework or in the library.
Yeah, can you tell us a bit more how you prefer to customize your color theme in the IDE and how one can actually do that?
So right now I have it on the default theme. I just changed the font, just so it would look familiar with what everyone else does. So if you go into the editor, colors and fonts, You'll just make a copy of whatever sort of theme you want. There's also there's a site. Let's see if I can bring it up. It's like IntelliJ color themes. That was something like that. Yeah, so if you go here, this has a bunch of color themes for IntelliJ and WebStorm and all JetBrains-based editors. If you want to check those out, there's a bunch of great ones in there. So I usually don't spend too much time other than just downloading one of these and tweaking it a bit. Because once you have a theme, you can come in here and I'm just using Ubuntu Mono as my font, and then all the various font options and highlighting options. Like if you just come into here, the language defaults, I want all my keywords. You can click on it, and it'll actually take you to that keyword. You could select the different color you want it to be. So if I want strings, they're green right now, so I click on string, come in here and tweak it a bit. The console font is one that I typically just say apply editor font settings, so it has the same font as my editor. So you see I just it stole the editor font settings. And a lot of these font settings or style settings inherit from others. So basically if you change the main ones, the general language defaults and these, you don't have to worry too much about JavaScript specific or SAS specific or whatever specific styles, because most of them inherit from others. So you see that like it says use inherited attributes from classes instance field. So go to language defaults. And if you modified this one, then it would cascade down or whatever you want to call it into the other styles. Otherwise, you can tweak it to your heart's content there. Any other questions?
Can you show us a bit of some TypeScript refactorings? If
Sure.
you can,
yeah. So yeah, one thing I can do here, I don't think I showed, is that, so let's just remove ng on init. You'll see once I removed ng on init, I'm just going to close everything else, close others, and collapse that. You'll see that once I removed ng on init, because I implemented, and this isn't really a refactoring, but because I implemented on init, so I'll remove that, and then that error will go away. But since I implemented on init, it's going to know and show a squiggly, a red squiggly line there that on init is required, and it's not implemented. So if you hit Alt-Enter, you can say implement all members, and it'll generate that little stub for you of ng on init. The same thing would happen with ng on activate. It would generate this stub for you. And then at any time, you can just, the big refactoring I do is renaming, which is just Shift F6. So I name this person component. It'll look through my project for anything that had that reference, and we'll just go ahead and show usages. We'll do find usages, so it gives me a dialog. Find usages. So find usages will give you this like tool window that pops up. Show usages will just give you a little list you can select from. So you can see that across my project now, that person component got renamed. So this is in a different file in Star Wars app component. Person component, or what was detail component, is now person component. And all these places where it was called detail component before, it's now called person component. So those are all renamed properly. I haven't done a lot with refactoring moving. Let's see. I don't use the. Let's see if I can inline something. So I'll try and inline this. So I assigned it to an ID. So I could do Control-Alt-N and say inline constant. So that'll just drop that inside of there. Basically remove that original reference and drop it inside, because it's only referenced one time, so it might make sense to inline that constant. That's a good refactoring. Change signature. I don't want to mess with that one right now. Yeah, at any time I can extract any of these. So if I just want to extract like this ID string, so I wanted to extract it to variable, we'll just make it a, let's see, Alt-C would be constant. So that's called param now, and we can rename that to ID or something. Well, I guess there's something already named ID. Just reformat this a bit to clean it up. So that's extracting. So that's Control-Alt-V, and you can extract entire expressions or just that tiny little piece there, and name it foo. Refactor. What else we got? Yeah, I think that's all the refactoring I want to show right now. Mostly, I believe if I start dragging files around, they should refactor. Let's see. So person component is currently referenced in Star Wars component from detail. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'll try it. So I'll move it over to home component. Yeah, eventually this will update so that you see it turn red. Maybe if I would have done the move refactoring instead of just dragging. Let's do move to home.
Yeah, you need to check search for references, and it will update all the imports and everything then.
Okay, so move. Oh, I didn't realize that was unchecked. Okay, so home. Yeah.
Oh.
It'll get there. So that should work. That's that is considered a bug, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like it changed. Yeah, it changed this one, but I guess it missed wherever else I was. I'll just go ahead and move that back. All right. So that stuff will work, and a lot of the Angular 2 stuff, as you know, Angular 2 is an release candidate. Just give WebStorm at least a couple days to catch up with all the changes.
Yeah, true.
I know. Yeah. Like things like integration with Angular CLI and other features like that are definitely on the roadmap from what I've heard, but you just got to give them a bit of time to catch up with things that are released the day before. So one other kind of side fun thing is from your package JSON, you can show your NPM scripts. You can run npm update from just there, so you don't have to even open a terminal. So my npm scripts would pop open, and I can just start and run any of these, and it'll give me a console and show them running. Any other questions?
Yeah, can you tell us a bit more about compiling TypeScript projects, like whether it's better to use npm scripts for that, or how can one use built-in TypeScript compiler or something else maybe?
So by default, my recommendation for Angular 2 projects is to use the Angular CLI. Because that's going to have all the best practices around routes and lazy loading and final builds, that code split and all that sort of fun stuff that's going to make your build as small and fast as possible. So when you get the prompt, like the initial prompt, there will be, I'm not sure if I can make it come back somehow, but there's a prompt to use the TypeScript compiler. I think it's under Tools. I'll just search for it, TypeScript. There it is, Languages and Frameworks. So the TypeScript compiler, if you enable it, it's just going to run TSC, which is if you npm install TypeScript globally, TSC is the TypeScript compiler. So that command, it's going to run it against your project, and if you enable this, WebStorm can just run that for you and begin compiling your files for you inside of your project. And based on your TS config, so I guess that's, let's see, where's the TS config in here? tsconfig.json. Oh, it's in the source folder. Okay. So based on this file, based on this tsconfig file, whether you run tsc inside of from a terminal, command prompt, or whatever, or you run it from WebStorm, it's just going to look to this file and compile it the exact same way. So if it prompts you to start compiling files and you don't want to have to open some sort of a terminal or anything, this can just begin compiling it, and it'll do it. It's going to run the exact same command, run it the exact same way, and it's going to run it on anytime you make a file change in WebStorm. So it can handle all of that file watching and everything like that for you, so you don't have to set anything up. So it's kind of sixes whether you want to do it one way or the other. And you can actually come in here and override, so you can see how it says use tsconfig. You can set options manually if you wanted to add outer somewhere else, I don't know, or add other additional options. But by default, I think everyone would agree that you should keep an updated tsconfig of how you want your project to run. And WebStorm is going to offer tsconfig inside of tsconfig completion and all that sort of stuff inside of there. So there's really no reason to not just open a file, say, start adding options that you want, module, node, or common, whatever. So starting adding options you want, and if you're not familiar with TypeScript that much, a tsc init command would generate this file for you and give you all the defaults that TypeScript would run with anyway. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, thank you. What's your preferred way to start a new Angular project? Would you use Angular CLI or just start from scratch?
I would either use, I would definitely use the Angular CLI probably 90% of the time. There's on GitHub, let me find this page on GitHub. Let's see, Angular seed. There's an Angular seed project if you want to use, this one is for Webpack, or if you want to use, let's see, I think there's a tag for system, there's a branch for System.js. Maybe it's Angular, probably Angular 2 seed. I'm on the wrong one. There it is. All right, so this one is for Webpack. If you want to see how Angular 2 is compiled with Webpack, or there's one for System.js if you want to set it up with that. Angular CLI is going to generate more than this, like all your tests and things of that nature, and enabled you to follow all the conventions, style guides, and things like that for when you generate routes and components and services. So I'd recommend always using the CLI, but if you want to just these are smaller and probably more lightweight. I don't know if that makes any difference anymore. The build and everything in Angular CLI is going to be completely optimized towards the Angular 2 workflow. So basically that's what I use. And if you're not familiar with that, that'll be at cliangular.io, and you can look through here on how to get it set up. And eventually this stuff will be integrated with WebStorm, where you can just do like new Angular 2 project and it'll scaffold out the entire thing for you using this, because writing a GUI around this isn't really that difficult. You could do that now if you wanted to go into settings and your external tools. Let's see, external tools. If you just want to add other additional external tasks to run, you could say run the Angular CLI with whatever parameters and bind these to keyboard shortcuts to run Angular CLI commands. So you could basically build it yourself. I don't think anyone has built that yet, though. I think you can.
Yeah, we are planning to work on integration with the Angular CLI in WebStorm 2016.2. So we are going to integrate it to create new projects from the welcome screen. That's the plan.
Yeah, and if anyone wants to do it, just come in here, go under Export Settings, select your tools, and export them and share them with everyone else. That way everyone can benefit from your hard work.
People are also asking if what's the best way to start working with Angular 2 if you're already familiar with Angular 1. What's your take on that?
The best way to start working with Angular 2 if you're already familiar with Angular 1. I would still also use the CLI as a teaching tool because the biggest hurdle to Angular 2 is the initial setup, where you have to set up a new project, configure TypeScript, configure your build, and start a server and all that sort of stuff. And the CLI takes care of all of that for you. So getting from 0 to project up and running, start with the CLI. And then the story around like migrating a project from Angular 1 to Angular 2, it's called ng upgrade. And I don't have that running here right now, but you can basically run your Angular 1 project inside of Angular 2 and kind of slowly refactor pieces of it into Angular 2, and vice versa. You can run Angular 2 inside of Angular 1. But if you want to get started learning, I mean, I like Egghead a lot if you want to learn. Some guy told me he was really good. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you, John, for answering all the questions, and thank you for the webinar.